Okay, so hi everyone. My name's Jennifer for those that don't meet me, and welcome to the first talk as part of Meticulous Markings, which is an exhibition at Fountain House Gallery, currently in New York. For anyone that needs it, a visual description of myself is I am a white woman in my 40s with bright red hair, with a very blunt fringe, and I'm wearing a black top with pearls all over it today. I'm just going to go around the artists for them to visually describe themselves too. And Susan,
Hi, my name is Susan, and I am of mixed ethnicity, olive skinned, with dark blonde hair and bangs. And I'm wearing a hospital gown, one of them from my last hospital stay, and I hope never to return.
yeah. Susan, so hello. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to art?
Hi, um, my name is Susan, and thanks, Jennifer, for having me in the show.
You're welcome.
I started making art at 3 years old. I'm self-taught. I didn't go to art school. The arts were not encouraged at home, and I fought my whole life to be an artist. I make dolls. They're all hand sewn. I use different materials and mediums, and these are made from unprimed canvas. I've used acrylic, charcoal, marker, and pencil on these. Some of the people I make dolls of have mental health issues. All three dolls in this show are writers that I admire who have mental illness, some diagnosed and some not. Virginia Woolf, Sylvia Plath, and Edgar Allan Poe. Although I don't think Poe was diagnosed, but clearly he had issues. I'll start with Virginia Woolf. The text on the doll is her last letter she wrote addressed to her husband before she died of tragic circumstances. Sylvia Plath, I always loved her poetry, and incidentally, I read her book, The Bell Jar, while I was in a mental hospital. Edgar Allan Poe was my twin brother's favorite writer. He died when we were both 18, and he was a writer himself. I dedicate the doll to him. And I also have empathy for Poe and his illness because drugs and alcohol run in my family.
Mhm.
I have been a member of Fountain House Gallery since 2015. And what I love the most is getting hugs from Rachel and Becky. I love being in the Outsider Art Fair and seeing people that I haven't seen in a whole year. Being there is a dream come true, and I'm so grateful. It hasn't been easy accepting the fact that I have a mental illness, but I feel proud to have come so far and be able to represent myself front and center as an artist with mental illness in the premier gallery for people living with mental illness, Fountain House Gallery. My diagnosis is not something I run away from anymore, but something that I embrace and hope to inspire others to do.
Mm.
5 words to describe my dolls are alive, resurrection, emotional, spiritual, and timeless. Thank you.
Oh. Well, Susan, you did it all in one. Can we talk a little bit about the dolls a bit more? What sort of scale, for those that haven't seen them, are these?
Um, Forgetting the measurements, I'd say they're a little bit bigger than this one. Here's one at home I have, but it's bigger than this one.
Yeah, they are bigger than that. Yeah. And what do you stuff them with?
I stuffed them with polyester stuffing mostly, and I started with cotton stuffing, but these in particular have polyester stuffing.
And what was the first doll that you ever made?
Oh, it was actually a doll called Girl in Restraints, which is actually at Fountain House Gallery right now. It started with this drawing, Girl in Restraints,
Hmm.
and then I started doing like going into, you could see the going into the 3D version where I have writing, but it's my life, and it was just I guess it was just like quick, just trying to get it out, my story. Sometimes I would write backwards because I really didn't want anybody to see it, so I'd put it in pencil because it was heavy and it was personal stuff, trauma and stuff. So
Mm,
this is girl in restraints, and you could see the restraints, and she's looking through the seclusion room window. This is a
mhm,
hospital gown. When a lot of times I take the hospital gowns that I wore in hospitals and I cut them up and I put them on the dolls.
mhm,
So some of my dolls actually have, in particular, I do different series, and one of my series, Asylum dolls, which these three in meticulous markings are of that category. Some of them do have hospital gowns that I wore. And then it just went into my first doll. My first doll that I tried to make was actually in 2012, 2013 when I was living at home with my parents. But actually took couple of stuffed animals and ripped them apart and put them back together the way I wanted to see it. And one of my sisters walked into the bedroom and she said, "Oh, that's hideous." And so I tried to hide it, but then just like she
mm,
just would not let it go. So I ended up throwing it out. So it took me a
mm.
couple of years to start again, but I did.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for Fountain House Gallery and the studio because although I don't go to the studio that often. I did do two residencies at Fountain House Studio in Long Island City, and one was a year after I got out of the hospital, a couple of months to a year. And so, reflecting on my last hospitalization in 2018, where I actually wore this gown on the wards,
Hmm.
that really having a place to just be social again and to create was just it was very helpful for me
Hmm.
to explore the girl in restraint there. So I am grateful for the studio, though I tend to like to work alone at home. And also, I used to be a member of the Living Museum where I
Hmm.
was a patient. It's on the grounds of Creedmoor State Hospital. And I was there I was young when I was there, but I was there for like 6 years. So I went from the
Wow.
inpatient ward in 1995 to 2001. I started as an inpatient in Creedmoor, went to the museum. That was my art studio, and that
Mm.
was the best of it because there was nobody there. It was the 90s. And we all had our own room and stuff like that. And anyway, things happened, but which I won't go into. But then I lost my studio space there after six
Mm.
years and was at home basically for 10 years, not doing any art. And I was not allowed to do art at home. And then, but I would do art anyway. Like I do art in the hospital. I always found a way to create. Nothing was going to stop me. Like I stole a pen from the nursing station. I wrote my first solo play in the hospital in 2015. So I always found a way to create. I would take pillowcases and try to write on them with crayons or whatever I could, like pieces of paper off the wall, you know. But I would try to do work in my house and hide it. I would go to Michael's art store across the street, hide my stuff, write poetry, hide it in pieces of paper and fold it and put it in my bag, stuff like that. And then so joining Fountain House Gallery was really nice. What I love about it, it gives me structure. So even if I have nothing else to do, we do 6 shows a year with outside curators like yourself. And by the way, all of our shows look great, but your show looks fantastic. It has this beautiful orange
Oh, thank you.
color on the wall. And I can tell you, I feel so proud and so blessed to walk into the gallery and to see like Jennifer Lauren gallery on it is just so cool. It's like two galleries coming together at once, and it's such a beautiful show. Everybody that sees this show says it's beautiful. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. What is it that you like about the tactile quality, this kind of sculptural element of the dolls that you make, rather than just doing a drawing?
I really feel like it's bringing something to life. I really feel like my dolls are real. Um, like my first doll was actually a self-portrait. So I was really just creating myself as a doll.
Hmm.
And most of my life, I never really felt real or things around me sometimes didn't feel real. And I felt like a doll.
Hmm.
But then dolls seemed real because I knew I was real. That sounds weird, but yeah, they seem like real people to me. So I'm you know, God wants me to do this. Like, I really feel like in my life, the God has set out a path for me to create certain certain dolls and certain icons, and they will come to me. I will certain voices or certain things I see, people, the visions, the writers, they speak to me like I
Mhm.
really feel like I'm in tune with something a higher power, the dead, the spiritual. My mother, it started kind of with my mother because my mother's of Trinidadian descent, from the islands, from Trinidad.
Wow.
And growing up, there was like kind of like a lot of voodoo in my house, which I was terrified of because my mother was very abusive, and so a lot of that was taken out on me. But I really embraced my roots and the spirituality of the my culture, my Indian culture, which is mixed with actually voodoo is mixed with a lot of black culture. So
Mhm.
my mom's Trinidadian, she's Indian, but it was very mixed with a lot of the British because of the British rule. So there's a lot of that. And then there's also this wonderful African culture that's mixed into the Indian culture with people in Trinidad. And my mother adopted a lot of that stuff, even though she'd like to not admit that there's a lot of black in there. But I'm certainly very proud of it and aware of my history, aware of my roots, the slave roots of my mother's ancestors coming from India to work the cane fields
Mm.
in Trinidad. And I've just embraced that because there is magic to it. There's a lot of magic to a lot of the voodoo and the things that my mother was doing in the house. Now, she wasn't creative at all. She would just like cast spells and do weird stuff like that. And some of it I thought was directed towards me. And then I realized, I always had this like, the thing is like, I really believe like I have this scar here. And my mother, when I was 3 years old, uh, she hit me with a frying pan, right? And that's okay, but now I don't want to go into that. But the point is like, I had like she tried to take away my third eye. That's what I believe looking back, my intuition. Like I was unconscious and I had to get stitches. So when she took that away, I thought she took that away, but I swear I feel like it just really instead it opened something up because it
Mm.
was always there. Like I always felt that she tried to take the magic away from me because she knew I was in tune with things, you know?
Mhm.
So I was in tune with a higher power, spirituality. And I really embraced my Christian roots as well. My father was German Lutheran, and a lot of that because I grew up across the street from St. Joan of Arc. And growing up, I had like certain visions and certain, I guess you would call them hallucinations, but a lot of that affected my art,
Mm.
making my dolls, my spiritual octopus series. I've had dreams, I've had visions, I've had certain dolls like talk to me. I've had certain icons like early one morning, Robert Oppenheimer appeared in my living room and it scared me. But
Mm.
something told me that I had to make that doll. And I was like, but why would I? I was actually fighting it. I'm like, well, why would I make this doll? Like, the atom bomb and all this. But something told me, no, he wants me to
Yeah.
do this reason. And so
Yeah.
as I started looking at his life, I was like, I see so much spirituality in him besides just being a brilliant person, but just the humanity of like, I read one story about Mr. Oppenheimer where, after the atom bomb fell and everything, and he didn't want the second one to fall, and he was begging people to not send it. And of course, we also the movie and stuff, but I read an article that his son was interviewed in an article saying that after he moved to an island with his family, he got very upset and he begged for a turtle's life. Like, we can't have this for dinner. We cannot kill this turtle.
Wow.
So yeah, and if you see him in recordings, his eyes are just very like it's almost like he's ghost-like he's coming out at you. And anyway, sorry. But I've had I had a dream I was Joan of Arc. I knew I had to do the Joan of Arc doll. I had a dream that I was Joan of Arc and I was on the battlefield and I could see it. And I just woke up crying thinking I should have died with my men. So
Mm.
then I started working on Joan of Arc in class, and then that wasn't enough, and I had to create the doll. Something was telling me,
Yeah.
oh, she's the leader of the asylum dolls right now.
Yeah.
She's gonna lead this army for me because she's like the leader of the mentally the mentally ill also. So it made sense in my world of dolls, like she's a leader. So Yeah, just
Thank you, Susan.
yeah, thank you. Sorry, went on.
Don't worry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay.
But thank you for being honest and sharing those stories with us. And then a question for Susan. Have you ever given a doll as a gift to someone? And
Yes,
maybe we'll ask what was it and why?
yes, I actually gave my Shakespeare acting teacher, uh, that I study with. Actually, I've studied with him for a couple of years. Peter Francis James, my mentor. I gave him a James Baldwin doll.
And
I
why
also
in
gave
particular?
I also gave my private therapist a monk doll, Edward Monk, the Scream, the character, the Scream. I just gave him that, and it's in his office every time I see him. So.
And why did you give your mentor the James Baldwin one?
Actually, my teacher, Peter Francis James, actually turned me on to this beautiful essay, Why I Stopped Hating Shakespeare, written by James Baldwin. I was so moved by it that he kind of inspired that doll anyway. So that's why I gave it to him.
Excellent. Did I meet him in America?
Yeah, I brought him
Yeah,
out of nowhere. I was happy he all of a sudden could make it, and it's an outside of art fair.
yeah.
And yeah, he's just a very talented, very nice guy. I'll be taking him again in the fall. So really feel very blessed to have him as my teacher.
Wonderful.
You gotta see, I mean, he was just on Left and 10th on Broadway, but you really have to see him play Shakespeare because he's a master teacher and he's a wonderful actor.
I feel like there's some people that can identify with chores going by the wayside because their art has taken over instead. Yes. And Susan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm constantly doing art. It really helps me because I have anxiety, depression, self-harm issues, and art is a great channel for that. And I'm always making dolls. I have several categories of dolls, so I'm always creating. I'm also Becky just saw me in a play. Thanks, Becky. I'm in a play. I perform as an actor under the stage name Shyla Idris. So I'm in a play off Broadway right now called Adam Driver. It's funny the name.
Wow.
Chain Theater. So we have two more shows on the 13th and the 19th. And then after that, at my school, my acting school, HB Studio, I'll be doing a stage reading in May, called American Scoreboard, How Did We Get Here? And then I'll be doing an excerpt of my solo play, my second solo play now, called Last Will. It's Shakespeare, psychiatry, and an actor's journey. So it combines classical and contemporary text. And it's just my journey about losing my father and how he really inspired me to be an actor. And so I'm going to perform that in the theater June 3rd.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm always doing stuff.
You're
And
also very busy always. Yes.
for fun though, my favorite thing is playing Shakespeare. So I just do that at home for fun. And I like to do different characters and I put them on my YouTube channel, and I also recently made a playlist for my next solo show, Last Will. So I have a Last Will playlist where it's kind of like behind the scenes working on a show and how you put a show together, and some of it may make the final cut, some may not.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, and I keep
Busy
making
then.
dolls too. Yeah, I just keep making dolls. The last doll I made was a Prince doll and I submitted it. We're gonna have a show in the summer called Life's a Party. That should be a lot of fun. And I don't
Great.
know if it's again, and maybe it won't, but I just Prince is besides being a genius, he's a very spiritual guy, and I like a lot of his lyrics for that reason.
And Susan, you sound like you live, eat, and breathe going around New York as well.
Yeah, I think I think growing up in New York City, honestly, it was just hard for me, growing up in poverty, and it certainly reflects in my work and the materials I use or what I can afford. Or a lot of times I go to the 99-cent store and get buttons or thread or just
Hmm.
scraps of fabric from the store, like for 50 cents, or I'll bargain with the guy. Come on, that's not a dollar, that's 50 cents. It's And it's a very Indian thing to do anyway, bartering. But yeah, I'm very sensitive to sound, so I feel like for me, sometimes being outside for too long is hard, and I just like want to run back inside. And I do just want to run back inside of my house, and that's I like just quiet and isolating myself. And then I have this other side of me that I guess always wanted to express myself, and particularly like these emotions I have sometimes, like just extreme emotions. So I think acting definitely helped me
Mhm.
look at people in the eye. It was like it was something because I growing up I didn't look at people in the eye. I didn't talk till I was like in my 20s. I was really quiet, and yeah, even just like I'd be pulling out my hair when I was younger, which is kind of like where my this Out of My Head doll series came from. So, but I think we're telling stories. We're constantly telling many different stories, as Joyce said. The environment affects us, our personal environment where we grow up, whether we have mental health issues or not, which I think everybody has mental health issues and problems and struggles. And I think that, I'd love to see like, what Joyce does. I'm sure she's an artist. I'm guessing she's an artist, and the kind of work she creates in Scotland. You have a beautiful accent, by the way. And New York, and just being mixed, like just for me being mixed, and how that's the two religions in my two religions, and how that's affected me, and actually growing up with not with religion, but something I had to
Mhm.
find on, and just being my identity issues being half German, half Indian, my mom being dark, my dad being lighter, and how that's played into. I think it's just all there,
Yeah.
and even now, when you're kind of like our country, America is in a state of shock right now, in a state of
Mhm.
trauma. Not only collectively have we gone through that with the pandemic, which I believe if we look back, we don't always know how something's affecting us at the moment. But when we look back, we see that the pandemic affected all of us on
Mhm.
some different levels. And right now, like we're going through a lot in our country, and I feel so happy that our brothers and sisters in England are marching with us, in
Mhm.
France, all across the world. And even though I don't do social political art per se, a lot of stuff like that has affected me, including now Trump. So, I'm feeling like I do have to do like the doll that I'm working on now is Alexei Navalny, just because it just speaks to the time, if not now, when. And I've been wanting to do Alexei Navalny for a while now, and I promise I'm going to do this doll. Once the play's over, I'm going to do the doll, but I have to do it because this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our freedom right now.